So this is an interesting one, BookTube. I felt like I had to share here. So what I've come across here is my copy of J.M. Barrie's My Lady Nicotine actually has pages that are uncut. Now, I started reading this on the beach earlier today, and when I came across some of these uncut pages, I thought they were flukes and I just wanted to read on, so I quite roughly just tore them, having nothing to cut with it. But now I'm realizing that I'm coming across more and more of these uncut pages here. So I'm going to sit down and take care of them in a more proper way. I'm not sure what people would have used initially back in the day to cut the pages in their books, but I've got a pair of scissors here and I'm hoping that will do the trick and take care of this for me. And this also indicates to me that this book would not have been read by its original owner, considering a lot of the pages are actually uncut. And the copyright date here is 1896, if I can get this to focus. It's not going to focus for me. But, so I'm not sure whether this edition is from 1896 or whether that's just the copyright date of the original work. But I would guess that it would date not long after that. I'm not really sure when they started to print books with the pages already cut. If you know anything about the history of bookbinding and about uncut pages, I'd love to hear in the comments below. But this is just really fascinating for me. So I've gone ahead and cut this. And I didn't make it quite as smooth as I intended. You can see the scissors caught a bit, but it's definitely better than my my makeshift tearing that I attempted on the beach earlier today. And it looks like I've got another one of these to deal with right away here. It's odd because I can see that someone made the effort to cut the pages and perhaps maybe even began reading the start of the book, but as I go through, there are just spots where it's like the original owner just missed a number of pages. Every few pages I've got uncut pages here. So I just thought that was interesting and I thought I would share. And I'm sure some people would say, don't you dare cut those pages because that, ruins the value of the book. But to me, the value in this book is really the reading pleasure I get from it and, the ability to actually read it. I guess this works, but I'd really love to hear, as I said before, if you have experience cutting the pages of a book to open it up, I would love to hear what it is you're using should I come across another book like this where I need to take a scissors or blade to it, to actually open it up so that I'm able to read it. And this is one of the books that I purchased last week from the Book Bazaar that I showed off in my book haul. And I've been enjoying it so far. It is, I guess I would say, a novel, but it's told in an essay type format. Our narrator is talking about events in his life, stories in his life that have been affected by his smoking habit. Things that revolve around a specific brand of tobacco that he and his friends like to smoke. And, some of it's quite funny. There's a story in here about cigars. A friend of his tells him that his wife has taken to buying him a specific brand of cigars. And at first, he went along with it. He didn't want to upset her by telling her that he didn't like this brand of cigars. And so she got it in her head that, he really likes this brand of cigar and that's all he'll smoke. And so he's got this big cupboard in his office that's kept locked, and that's where he keeps all the cigars that she's bought him of this brand. And she thinks she's getting them for him as gifts. And even though he smokes other brands, he buys them discreetly, a half dozen at a time. And he goes so far as to disguise them using the gold-colored bands and paper and placing them at the top of a box of these other really poor cigars that he doesn't like to smoke, that his wife got him, so that his wife will think he's smoking this brand of cigars. And he has to keep up this ploy even with his guests in the house, and his guests, they don't want this really crappy brand of cigars, but with those that he knows well, he assures them that these cigars are okay as long as they take from the top layer. There's all sorts of funny stories in here like that. Another story, to be honest, I'm not really sure what it has to do with the tobacco or the cigars, but a friend of his is going out of town and he asks him to look after his chrysanthemum plant for him. So he asks him to step in and water it. And it is a little bit odd, considering this man has servants who could certainly water this geranium, or rather this chrysanthemum. But he entrusts it to our narrator instead. And our narrator says he meant to water this chrysanthemum. He went so far as to even, call for water one day, for a pitcher of water, but when the pitcher of water arrived, he couldn't remember why he'd asked for it. And by the time he actually, goes in at the end of this week when he's supposed to be watering this chrysanthemum to water it, he's told by one of the servants that the chrysanthemum died and they've thrown it out. And this causes a chill in the friendship between him and his friend. In fact, he says, we never really spoke much again after that. So this kind of ludicrous story of a chrysanthemum ending a friendship. And then in one of the earlier chapters or essays, he's talking about his pipe, how the bowl for his pipe is often loose, and how he used to keep that loose when he smoked this inferior brand of tobacco. He used to keep the bowl loose, and when a woman would come along, sometimes she would, accidentally knock the bowl from his pipe. And while she was apologizing, he would, make a flirtatious comment about, you came over and my pipe lost its head. And of course, he thought the women were flattered by, oh, this is an interesting one. This is almost cut, but not quite. So I'll just need a little trim there. But according to him, this narrator, once he started smoking this superior brand of tobacco, I think it's called Arcadia, he was so wrapped up in his pipe that he no longer felt the need to flirt with other women, and he and his friends almost have this cult-like exclusive club where only those who are smoking this brand of tobacco are allowed in the room. And he says anyone smoking anything else will be politely asked to leave or to switch their brand of tobacco. And so this is very much, a satirical, humorous novel or collection of essays. J.M. Barrie in the introduction claims that he himself never smoked until he sat down to write this. But it's difficult to tell whether, the introduction is J.M. Barrie himself. It's kind of framed as like a reader's introduction here. Whether it's J.M. Barrie himself or whether it is, our narrator speaking to us again. And initially I thought these were, essays from J.M. Barrie himself, but as I read on, I'm increasingly getting the sense that even though many of these may be based on J.M. Barrie's real life, they are not essays in the true sense. Rather, they're a series of literary essays that are strung together to form the basis for sort of a novel, but not quite, because there's really no plot here. I guess I would call them at best, sketches, and that would make sense because it says the novels, tales, and sketches of J.M. Barrie. So perhaps this volume, My Lady Nicotine, is a series of sketches. And I haven't had my face on camera the whole time, but I am here. Just a little impromptu video here, cutting the pages of this book.